Known for sun-soaked beaches, fiery flamenco, and some of the world's best food, Spain is the sixth biggest economy in Europe and ranks as the 14th largest in the world by GDP. The country has a long list of cultural exports, from the origin of classical guitar to the world's second most spoken native language, from the legendary football clubs to festivals like Las Fallas. Spain isn't just about paella and fiestas. It's Europe's second largest auto manufacturer after Germany, a major player in agriculture, a leader in renewable energy, and boasts Europe's largest high-speed rail network. The Mediterranean powerhouse has an economy larger than Norway's, Singapore's, and even Switzerland's, yet it's rarely talked about as a heavyweight. And the question is, why? If you are a Spaniard, don't forget to write your opinion in the comments section below. Spain's history is a roller coaster of epic shifts, from its colonial past to republics, monarchy to autocracy, and everything in between. Just in the last century, Spain went through a brutal civil war, followed by a decades-long dictatorship under Franco, who initially practiced self-sufficiency and economic isolation, and then shifted to opening up the economy in later years. Spain made a huge shift to democracy in 1975. Here's the interesting part. The new constitution recognized the country's regional diversity. Spain isn't your typical centralized country. It's split into 17 autonomous communities and 2 self-governing cities to protect local languages, traditions, and identities. You may think of them as states, but they're more like mini countries gathered together under the flag of Spain. Each community has its own parliament and president with varying degrees of self-government, and even has control over sectors like education, healthcare, and in some cases, taxes or police. These communities can't be compared to states in the USA, as the US system emphasizes uniformity while Spain prioritizes cultural preservation. While the system has its advantages, it's not all smooth sailing. First, you have regional disparities that lead to economic disparities. Then you have regional independence movements by the usual suspects like Catalonia. It's like Spain is stuck in a never-ending family feud, a house divided against itself forever. The country's geographical location presents many advantages, but the disadvantages are often overlooked. First off, there are the Pyrenees, the massive mountains stretching 430 kilometers between Spain and France. They're stunning, sure, but they act as a natural barrier, limiting trade and transportation. This kind of makes the country cut off from the rest of Central Europe, which adds to the shipping costs, making its exports less competitive. Furthermore, there's the issue of their rivers. They're pretty short, so moving goods by water isn't an option. That means they have to rely more on relatively costly land and sea transport. Additionally, Spain is often called the gateway between Europe and Africa, which sounds cool, but it also exposes it to any instability on the southern side, like dealing with migration waves or smuggling. This takes time and resources that could be spent elsewhere. To top it off, the countries in the south are comparatively low income, which doesn't help either. Next, we have the energy dependence. Spain is not an oil country, and we're not talking about olive oil, of which they are the biggest exporters in the world. We're talking about the fossil fuel, oil, coal, and gas. This lack of domestic energy sources creates a ton of challenges. For starters, reliance on oil imports becomes unavoidable to keep the lights on, which means they're at the mercy of constantly shifting global prices. This often leads to a trade deficit, putting a strain on the country's balance of payments. Additionally, there's always the worry that some global conflict or dispute could mess up their energy supply. And let's not forget industries like manufacturing. Since they depend so much on energy, their costs go up, making it harder for them to compete globally. And this list of issues just goes on and on. This has been a long-standing headache for Spain, which made it push hard towards renewable energy, and their recent results are impressive, but still a long way to go. With these deficiencies, you have to come up with some other gigs. For example, tourism. Spain welcomes almost twice as many tourists annually as its total population. They have transformed sunshine, siestas, and sangria into a thriving economic formula. But behind the postcard-perfect beaches lies an economy fighting to diversify. When you are buying German machinery but selling them tomatoes, math will never even up. The country relies on tourism as a key source of external income and the construction sector as an internal growth engine. Both of these sectors have taken a massive hit in recent years. Tourism during the 2020s lockdowns and its construction industry, well, that's a story of its own. Talking about economic bubbles is any economist's favorite turn-on, and we are no exception. Anyway, Spain's housing bubble in the late 1990s was a classic case of overconfidence and greed. Fueled by easily accessible mortgages and the brilliant idea that property prices only go up, the country went on a construction spree. And let's not forget the switch to the euro in 1999 that contributed to lower interest rates, encouraging more borrowing. Banks were giving out loans like candy, so people could borrow more to buy houses. This skyrocketed the demand for houses, and the construction sector became an instant hit. A lot of people ditched school early, some just grabbed basic diplomas, and some even dropped out because they could easily find an often low-skilled but high-paying job in the construction sector. The government also encouraged it, as it meant economic growth, more taxes, and a fix to high unemployment rates. Then there were foreign investors that joined the party by chipping in money to the housing market. All these factors kept on inflating the demand. Developers went crazy to build more and more. Entire ghost towns were built. Of course, no one thought building way more houses than people needed might be a problem, and the whole thing turned into a bubble. Then came the 2008 global financial crisis, which acted as a trigger, and everything fell apart. Banks stopped lending easily like earlier, making it much harder for people to get mortgages. As a result, demand for housing dropped sharply. House prices dropped by over 30%, with some areas experiencing drops of 50% or more. At the same time, there was an oversupply of houses due to excessive construction. In short, there were more houses than buyers, and hence the crash. It's so interesting that all economics, no matter how complex, ultimately boils down to the concept of demand and supply. Many homeowners owed more on their mortgages than their homes were worth, leading to widespread foreclosures. Many banks, especially regional saving banks, also called cajas, were in such bad shape due to bad loans that the government had to bail them out, which led to a sharp increase in public debt. The EU also had to step in with a €41 billion rescue package in 2012. The construction industry collapsed, pushing the unemployment rate to 26%, with youth unemployment rates shooting to over 50%. The country built tons of houses and not enough futures. It took the economy years to recover, while the long-term effect still persists. The dream of home ownership was turned into a nightmare of debt and unemployment. Even without the relatively recent housing bubble, the unemployment rates have always been high in the country. It's kind of baked into the system, partly due to how the country operates and partly how unemployment is measured. Spain has a two-tiered labor system: permanent jobs with strong worker protections and temporary contracts that are easier to hire and fire. Since firing permanent workers is costly, many employers use temporary contracts instead. These structural rigidities are among the reasons for chronically high unemployment. However, labor market reforms in recent years have resulted in a notable decline in temporary contracts and a corresponding rise in permanent positions. Then there is the informal economy, where people get paid in cash. These workers are officially counted as unemployed, but they are actively working, just outside the formal system. On top of that, many of them are collecting unemployment benefits from the government. It skews job stats so badly, the official numbers are basically fiction. Now, you may think that a high unemployment rate would make Spaniards leave the country, and that's true. Many people, especially high-skilled individuals, move abroad for better opportunities, which is not great for a country seriously struggling with low births and an aging population. But looking at the stats makes you wonder, why don't they immigrate in greater numbers? There are multiple reasons. First of all, Spain is super popular with tourists as well as immigrants, so it's way more about people coming in than Spaniards heading out. Spaniards are also super attached to family and local ties. That strong sense of belonging makes most of them think twice before packing up and leaving. Also, they prefer a laid-back, happy life over the typical capitalistic career drive of always wanting more and more. They also tend to leave their parents' house much later to join the workforce. There's no pressure to move out of the house as soon as you are 18. It is common to see 35-year-olds living with their parents. If they don't have a job, they won't starve in the streets because they are at home with their Spanish mamas who are happy to cook meals for them. Basically, a strong family system to fall back on, or depending on the perspective, some would call it a Peter Pan world. Many want to move out and live independently, but lack the means to do so. There is a slightly loose and politically incorrect term to describe a young person who does not work or study called nini, which is derived from ni estudia ni trabaja. There are many other factors for the low immigration rates. For example, an arguably strong welfare system. Spaniards are also, let's say, less open to learning new languages for career advancement. Most of the Spaniards tend to immigrate only under very hard conditions at home. Nothing abroad ever measures up to Spain's social life. One of the highest life expectancy in the world could be attributed to the great life in Spain, among other reasons. Many end up feeling like they'll never truly fit in elsewhere. Many immigrate with the idea of returning soon. Some come back when they retire and use savings to open a small shop. Surprisingly, despite high unemployment, the country has a chronic labor shortage, especially in low-wage jobs, because work is sacred and Spaniards are not touching it. These jobs are now mainly filled by immigrants. Spanish work culture is a topic of its own. There are long lunch breaks on top of coffee and snack breaks. However, the culture of siestas, a short afternoon nap or rest period, is phased out of the urban culture, and it's more of a thing in rural areas. The country also has a negative predisposition towards entrepreneurship, which essentially requires taking risks. As failure gets judged hard, most would rather play it safe than bet on their cash or reputation on a startup. When it comes to the cost of living in Spain, opinions are all over the place. Some rankings call it affordable, while others label it as mid-range. Housing costs way more than essentials like food and transport, which are reasonably priced. Basically, you can get tapas for €2, but strive to afford rent. It varies by region as well. Life in cities like Madrid or Barcelona is pricier than in rural areas. Expats and tourists often find Spain cheaper than other Western European countries, which adds to its rep of being budget-friendly. But for locals, it all depends on where you live and what you are buying. Spaniards are known for being price-sensitive. Spanish rebajas in January and July attract significant consumer spending as shoppers look for bargains. In food items, people prefer fresh and locally produced products. There's a strong cultural emphasis on quality over quantity, especially in traditional products like jamón ibérico, olive oil, and wine. The 2008 financial crisis made Spaniards more cautious about spending. Also, a rapid increase in online shopping is witnessed, especially after 2020. Brand loyalty is another factor where trust in a brand's reputation and quality often outweighs the appeal of cheaper, unknown alternatives. For example, Zara is a source of national pride. Spaniards value experiences over material possessions. Spending on dining out and cultural events is common, reflecting the country's social and outdoor-oriented lifestyle. For example, tapeo is a social act of hopping into the bars to have tapas alongside drinks with friends is considered a quintessential part of Spanish culture. It's an experience on its own if you enjoy little things in life. And this willingness to spend on experiences is more prevalent in younger people. Barcelona and Madrid's quiet but thriving tech scene proves Spain can innovate. Additionally, the country is already a leader in renewable energy, reducing its dependence on foreign fuel, and this shift will only bring more benefits. Despite recent economic struggles, Spain is emerging as Europe's favorite comeback kid. The country needs to fiercely diversify its economy in more sectors. Spain has built an economy on sangria and sunbeds. Can it build one on startups and innovation? We hope that you have enjoyed the video. We'll try to reply to everyone in the comments section. Please like, subscribe, and share to support the channel.